his voice rising in pitch with every word. "Nothing!" I squeaked, cringing in fear, my eyes starting to well up. Without thinking, I began preparing to run. Welcome, horror buffs, to your ultimate destination for a heavy dose of bone-chilling encounters that will make your heart race and skin crawl uncontrollably. Are you ready for an intense rush of fear and thrill like never before? Then let's dive straight into the stories. The story was posted by Because Is Aid So Too on r/nosleep. My Aunt Tina's cat. When I was a boy, during summer vacation, my mom would drop me off at my Aunt Tina's house on her way to work. Tina didn't babysit so much as abandon me. As soon as my mom's car was out of sight, we'd hop in Tina's car. She'd drive me to the library, drop me off, and pick me just before my mom arrived that evening. While waiting for my mom, Tina sat me in her kitchen with a glass of lukewarm sink water, crackers, and a stack of old Reader's Digest, if I didn't have a library book. Then she'd disappear. Her house rules were simple: no drinking the Pepsi in the fridge, stay in the kitchen, and play outside when possible. On cold or rainy days, though, I was confined to the kitchen, and so was her cat. The cat was terrifying, huge, shaggy, dark gray. It crouched on the refrigerator, its lashing tail nearly touching the ceiling, its rolls of fat bulging over the sides, its claws, long, yellowed, and wickedly sharp, hooked into the fridge's surface, dimpling the metal. Its amber eyes burned into me, glowing faintly, with an intensity that made my scalp prickle. I tried to ignore it. I'd read a library book, flip through magazines, or stare at my hands, but its gaze was a physical weight. When I couldn't take it anymore, I'd glance up. Sometimes it would yawn, a deep, guttural sound that exposed its jagged teeth, black muscular tongue, and the wet machinery of its jaws. The yawn seemed intentional, like it was showing me its arsenal or telling me I was boring. It stretched out its impossibly long legs, too. Once, I think one of its massive kitty litter-sprinkled paws grazed the top of my cowlick. Then it would pull back, lick its lips, and settle again, shifting like it was preparing to pounce. I think the fridge would rock a little. I told myself it was just a house cat. It wouldn't hurt me. Dogs attacked people. Cats didn't. One evening, noticing my nervous glances at the cat, Tina said, "He doesn't need me to feed him. He hunts in the ravine." I nodded, trying to look inquisitive while avoiding looking at the topic of discussion. "He's a good boy," she continued, her tone reverent. "Keeps things safe." She paused. "You know about Mr. Karp's schnauzer, don't you? The little shit that barked all the time?" I hesitated. "Did it go missing?" I asked. I had seen the missing posters for various pets around the neighborhood. Tina smiled faintly. "Yeah, but I don't miss it," she said, then turned and walked out of the kitchen, leaving me alone with the cat. Its glowing eyes followed her retreat, then shifted back to me. Whenever the weather was nice, I'd make sure the cat was on the fridge before slipping outside. The ravine behind Tina's house felt safer than the kitchen. That day was overcast, and it was even darker, in the ravine beneath its canopy of overgrown foliage and twisted branches. The air was damp, clammy, and laced with the scent of rotting leaves, stagnant water, and maybe a hint of sewage. To me, it seemed like a jungle, and I was an explorer. Maybe that's why I wandered a bit further than usual, my footsteps crunching pleasantly on leaves and twigs, and sinking slightly into the ground. I was looking down at my shoes and imagining how Tina would react if I tracked mud into her kitchen when a flash of something silver and bright blue caught my eye. It was a dog collar, frayed on one side, with a silver tag on it. I bent down, picked it up, and examined it. The collar was still in a loop, and the buckle and dog tag were bent out of shape. I looked closer at the tag, trying to read it. "What are you doing down here?" I just about jumped out of my skin and swung around, my hands out in front of me defensively. One of them was holding the collar, a man stepped out from the shadows. It was Tina's neighbor, Mr. Carp. He'd seemed like a nice enough man when I'd occasionally seen him in his yard or walking his dog, but down here in the woods, he was too close, too tall. And the expression that crossed his face when he saw what was in my hand looked insane. "What? What did you do to my dog?" he demanded, his voice rising in pitch with every word. "Nothing!" I squeaked, cringing in fear, my eyes starting to well up. Without thinking, I began to turn slightly, unconsciously preparing to run. The man grabbed my upper arm, his grip painfully tight and digging deep into my skin. "Tell me the truth," he screamed, lifting his other hand to slap me. Suddenly, a dark gray mass slammed into the man, knocking him away from me, and both of us to the ground. The cat landed between us, its jaw unhinged, gaping impossibly wide. Its black tongue coiled out like a python, looping around the man's ankles, thighs, and waist. And then, just as the man started to scream, the cat swallowed him whole. The wet snap of its jaws echoed through the ravine, and for a moment I thought I heard the faint muffled sound of the man still screaming. The cat stood there, licking its lips. Its tail swished delicately, then its glowing eyes shifted to me. I lay there, too shocked to do anything. It padded toward me slowly, its paws silent on the damp earth. When it reached me, it leaned in close. Its breath was hot, rancid, horrible. Then it rubbed its cold, wet nose against my cheek, purring. That was 40 years ago. I never told anyone what happened. Who would believe me? What would I even say? Tina never mentioned her neighbor again, but as his grass grew longer and people started asking questions, I think she knew. When my aunt died, I went to her funeral. She was family, after all. No one talked about the huge cat she had all those years ago. Obviously, I wasn't about to bring it up. I'm not a cat person. Does that go without saying? I had a dog. When I got home from the funeral, he was gone. The cat was there instead, on my front porch, waiting, purring. I didn't have the courage to turn it away. It hasn't aged, not a day. It's as huge, shaggy, and gray as the day we met. I'm gray now too, and now its claws curl into the top of my refrigerator, dimpling the metal. When it wants out, I let it out. It disappears for hours, sometimes days, but like the proverbial cat from the song, it always comes back. The town has changed. There are no stray dogs anymore, no birds in the trees, no homeless on the streets. Sometimes the cat coughs up things. A wallet, its leather bleached white, its contents a pulpy mass. A woman's purse once, shredded and damp, its contents crushed and partially dissolved. I've found things in the litter box too. A crushed watch, jewelry, rings, little treasures caked with poop and sprinkled with kitty litter. I burn what I can in my fire pit. I throw the rest out the window during long, lonesome nighttime drives. What else am I supposed to do? Collect a mountain of evidence? Turn in my cat? Once, I came home to find my front door hanging open. What I assume were burglary tools scattered across the floor. The cat was in the living room, sitting on an empty duffel bag that wasn't mine, licking its claws. It burped when it saw me. I don't lock the doors anymore. Sometimes, late at night, I fall asleep to the sound of its claws clicking on the floorboards, and I wake in the morning to the pressure of the cat's weight on my chest. Its eyes burn into mine. I feel its claws through my comforter. Its breath is still hot, rancid, horrible. I scratch its chin. Its cold, wet nose bumps mine, and it purrs. Let's now move on to the next story from I'm Cheesy. The Flavor of God. The world didn't shift all at once. It bloomed, like a flower growing in reverse, petals spiraling inward until everything collapsed into one infinite point. That point was his tongue. He had only taken 2 hits, enough to feel loose, unmoored, like a balloon slipping free from its tether. The joint still smoldered in the ashtray when he wandered into the kitchen, his mind tugged forward by the distant hum of hunger. Pork chops sounded good, he thought. Simple, hearty, a childhood staple. He liked the idea of it more than the food itself. Cooking was just something to do. But when the first taste hit, the universe broke open. The salt didn't just taste salty. It was crystalline perfection, the ghost of the ocean trapped in a grain. The garlic powder dissolved into a rich, golden smoke that whispered of ancient fields. Paprika burned like the dying light of a sunset. Pepper crackled like static in his brain. Each flavor was so distinct, so impossibly whole, that his jaw locked, his lungs stuttered, his knees buckled. He fell forward, catching the counter as the rest of the meal followed. The sweetness of the oil searing the meat. The acid of heat blooming from the pan. He tasted the citrus note of his own sweat beating on his upper lip. Everything was taste, all at once, and it was too much. He doubled over, his mouth still filled with the pork chop symphony, but the taste didn't stay in his mouth. It slithered down his throat, into his stomach, until it was everywhere. He could taste his veins, metallic rivers pulsing with iron, copper, and faint traces of something acidic, bitter, alive. He gagged but didn't vomit. Vomiting would mean losing it, and the thought of losing this sensation terrified him. The food wasn't food anymore. It was an equation, a fractal, a door. Every element, every molecule revealed itself in crystalline clarity. Salt was no longer just salt. It was sodium and chlorine, ancient atoms that had once floated in primordial seas. Garlic powder whispered of decomposition, its pungency a reminder of life breaking down to feed itself again. His mind screamed against the revelation, yet his body leaned into it, desperate to taste more, desperate to understand. He looked at his hands and tasted the oils on his fingertips, the faint tang of the joint he had smoked earlier, the subtle musk of his skin. He could taste time itself, how long it had been since he washed his hands, how the particles of garlic powder had clung to his skin while he seasoned the meat. The room spun as the world collapsed inward. His legs gave out and he sprawled on the kitchen floor, staring at the cracked ceiling. Above him, the light flickered. The faint buzz of the bulb burned on his tongue, bitter and electric. He could taste the air, oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide, each molecule brushing against his tongue like a lover's kiss. This was no high. This was something else, something vast and unknowable. He closed his eyes, hoping to shut it out, but the darkness behind his eyelids was rich and endless, a void filled with flavors that didn't belong on Earth. God, he whispered, and for a moment, he thought he could taste that too. Not a person or a voice, but an idea, a presence that seeped through him like liquid light. It was everything and nothing, endless and infinitesimal. And it was terrifying. The clock ticked, but it didn't sound like a clock. The seconds were more like cracks in the universe, sharp and disorienting, each one vibrating in his bones. He tried to get up, to steady himself, but the floor felt too familiar and too strange at the same time. His fingertips brushed against the cold tile, but the sensation wasn't cold. It was ice and fire, the deep thrum of distant stars, a pull between opposing forces he couldn't understand. He lifted his hand to his mouth, tasting his own sweat again, but now it tasted like the dirt of ancient civilizations, the salt of tears, the bitterness of years wasted, his life condensed into one drop of sweat. The thought of his own body felt obscene, an imperfect vessel for something that had expanded beyond it. He was just a conduit now, an organ to carry the unimaginable flavors of the universe. The pork chop, now abandoned on the counter, called to him, the flavors fading, almost gone. His stomach growled, but it wasn't hunger. It was the gnawing sense of something missing, something far beyond his grasp, but so close he could taste it. He stood up, and the world shifted beneath him. Every movement was magnified, every sound distorted. The squeak of his shoes on the floor wasn't just sound, it was a symphony of friction, the perfect storm of rubber and wood and air. His breath felt like it was too loud, too harsh, too much. He inhaled deeply, but it wasn't air he was taking in. It was everything. The chemical composition of his breath, the blood pulsing through his lungs, the bitter rush of adrenaline, all of it, filling him up, overwhelming him until his body was a vessel he didn't recognize. But it felt too good to stop. The need to create, to keep tasting, gnawed at him. He turned back to the pork chop. It was now a mere shadow of its former self, the flavors fading, retreating into the void. But he couldn't let it go. He needed to finish it. He needed to master it. He reached for the seasoning again, but this time, the spices didn't feel right. The garlic powder and paprika felt small beneath him. He needed something more, something profound, something eternal. His mind raced, grabbing at the concept of flavor like it was a weapon, a key to unlocking something greater. A voice whispered in the back of his mind, a voice that wasn't his own, urging him to go beyond. He didn't question it. He knew what he had to do. His hands moved like a puppet's, guided by invisible strings. He reached for the olive oil, for the lemon juice, the chili flakes, the soy sauce. He sprinkled them with precision, with divine purpose, knowing that every move was one step closer to perfection. The pan sizzled beneath him as he poured the oil, alive with anticipation. His pulse quickened, and the air in the room felt thick, like it was made of pure possibility. He was about to create the ultimate dish. But then it hit him again, the taste of everything, all at once. And for a fleeting moment, he understood. He understood that everything had flavor, every choice, every step, every breath. He was connected to it all, a bridge between the microscopic and the monumental. He tasted the thoughts of his past, his regrets, his longing for something greater, something transcendent. He could taste his own desperation, his need to prove something, anything, to escape the weight of insignificance. He was no longer a boy. He was the universe itself, the measure of all things. He was everything, every grain of salt, every drop of oil, every breath that had ever been taken. It wasn't enough. Nothing was enough anymore. He turned back to the sizzling pan, his hands shaking as he sprinkled the last dash of seasoning. The flavors felt like they were slipping through his fingers, like trying to hold on to water. His stomach growled again, but this hunger wasn't for food. It was something deeper, something cosmic. The taste of the universe was on the tip of his tongue, and he wasn't sure if he was eating the pork chop anymore, or if the pork chop was eating him. The room was silent, but not really. The silence was a heavy thing, filled with the hum of everything. Atoms vibrating, molecules colliding, unseen forces that bound the world together. It was overwhelming in a way that was almost unbearable, but he leaned into it. He had no choice. The taste had become a part of him, had invaded every cell in his body, had twisted his sense of reality into something far too vast for his fragile human form to comprehend. He wasn't just tasting food, he was tasting existence itself. A sudden thought struck him, a terrifying epiphanic realization. What if the flavors didn't belong to food at all? What if food was just a veil, a distraction, a tool for him to grasp at something greater? What if the flavors were a language, one he'd only just begun to understand, a language that spoke to him from the edges of the universe? His mind trembled with the weight of the idea. What if all of this, the obsession, the search for the perfect meal, wasn't about food at all? What if it was a quest to understand something that had no end, no resolution? He grabbed the pork chop, his hand slick with oil, and took another bite. It wasn't the same as before. The flavors were sharper now, more intense, but also empty. He was filling himself with taste, but something in the core of him, something deep, deep down, was still starving. His chest constricted with the feeling. He wasn't sure if it was hunger or something else, something darker. He closed his eyes again, and the world blurred into a swirling chaos of colors and sounds and flavors. The garlic powder became the scent of decay, the paprika, the taste of death itself. The heat of the pan burned his tongue, but the burn was too sharp, too real, and he recoiled, ripping the chop from his mouth, staggering back. His heart pounded violently in his chest, and for a moment he thought he might suffocate on the air. "I've gone too far," he thought, and the words were like a scream in the back of his throat. He couldn't stop tasting, couldn't stop feeling everything. The world was too much now, and it wasn't food anymore. It was life itself. The weight of every decision, every moment, every breath he had ever taken pressed down on him, and for a second, he couldn't breathe. His hands shook. His legs felt like they might buckle beneath him. The floor beneath him wasn't just tile anymore. It was the surface of an infinite sea, the boundary between life and nothingness, and he was sinking. The taste of the room had changed. It no longer felt comforting or familiar. It felt wrong. It was suffocating. Is this what God feels? The thought pierced through his mind like a lightning bolt, and in that instant, he was both terrified and awed. Could he even imagine what it would be like to be God? To know everything, to taste every possibility, every outcome, every flavor of existence, all at once? He felt the overwhelming urge to cry, to scream, but there was no sound, no release. The taste, the flood of it, kept him locked in this infinite, impossible moment. He had become a conduit, a vessel, and now the power of it was suffocating him. And then it hit him. A single, simple truth. The taste would never end. It couldn't. The universe wasn't something you could taste and then walk away from. It wasn't a meal. It was a hunger that would consume you entirely. A thirst you could never quench. He was drowning, not in food, but in everything. He had crossed the line, and now there was no going back. The pork chop was forgotten, the meal unfinished. All that remained was the taste, the constant, infinite, all-consuming taste of everything. And then, without warning, it was gone. He awoke on the kitchen floor, his head pounding, his body trembling. The room was quiet, eerily still. The faint smell of burnt meat lingered in the air, but the flavors were gone. The world was just the world again. The weight of it all was gone, and he felt hollow. He reached for the pork chop. It was just food now, dry, bland, an ordinary meal. But his fingers hovered over it, and for the first time, he realized something terrible. He didn't want it anymore. He couldn't taste it. If you enjoyed these stories, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more thrilling horror stories like these. Also, share your thoughts on the story in the comment section below. If you want me to feature your own story on this channel, you are most welcome. Send your story to the email provided in the description below.